Um, Trump is escalating his January 6th cover-up as a political comeback. As he's trying to attempt a political comeback. Donald Trump is acting like is acting like an ex-squatter with a constitutional crime to hide, as the cover-up of his assault on democracy gathers pace alongside his political, what they call comeback. Now, the twice impeached squatter is continuing his influence on politics, popular culture, and national life, as broadening on multiple fronts and appears undimmed by his ban from social media platforms. His behavior is mirroring the conduct he showed while he was squatting, a driven desire to avoid accountability, a challenge to the U.S. system of checks and balances, a willingness to exploit racial and cultural divides, and an eye for a political opening that could boost his own profile. Like an apparent Tell-the-Klan rally on the eve of Virginia's gubernatorial election, the high-stakes election in a state that Trump lost by 10 points last year will be closely watched as an indicator of the political environment heading into the 2022 midterms. A just revealed list of documents that Trump wishes to prevent the House Select Committee probing is January 6th, and he's basically trying to prevent them from seeing and over basically which President Joe Biden has refused to assert the executive privilege. Because when a person's no longer squatting in the White House, they don't have executive privilege anymore. In itself, it offers a darkly suggestive picture of Trump's activities leading up to the mob attack by his sycophants in the U.S. Capitol. If the committee gets its hands on call logs, memos from senior White House staff, and entries from the then squatter schedule, it will be able to create a much fuller picture than it is already known about how far Trump directed the events, the depth of his effort to steal the election from Biden, and how little he did to stop the January 6th Klan riot once it started. In 2021, for example, and for the first time since the Civil War, the nation did not experience a peaceful transfer of power. The House committee wrote, "The Select Committee has reasonably concluded that it needs the documents of that then squatter who hoped to foment the breakdown and the rule of the law. It is difficult to imagine a more critical subject for congressional investigation." While Trump perpetually tries to evade the consequences of his actions, his latest campaign of obstruction is closely linked with his increasing political activity heading into the midterm elections and a possible 2024 presidential campaign. If the committee were to produce a damning report of Trump's conduct, it would form a powerful public record of an attempt by an ex-squatter to destroy America's democratic heritage as he apparently seeks the office again. But there is every reason to believe that in a new White House term, and feeling validated, Trump would pose an even greater threat to the Democratic governance. Hiding the truth of January 6th. The lengths to which Trump is prepared to go to prevent Americans from learning the full truth about the Capitol insurrection came to light in late-night court filings on Friday and early Saturday. The National Archives, for the first time, revealed in detail in a sworn declaration about how the trove of documents Trump wants to keep secret. Among the 700 pages of documents that are handwritten memos from the White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, logs of calls by the then squatter and then vice squatter Mike Pence, and the White House visitor records. In the Meadows documents alone, there are 3 handwritten notes about the events of January 6th and 2 pages listing of the briefings and telephone calls about the Electoral College certification. This is what the archivist said. The papers could also shed new light on the role of the conservative lawyer John Eastman, who drafted a 6-step plan for how Pence could have certified the election in favor of Trump, and that would be illegal, rather than the rightful winner on January 6th. Eastman proposed Pence throwing out the votes of enough states that Biden won, so that the presidential election would be decided by the House, where each state gets a single vote, and Republicans controlled more state delegations. Eastman said on the former White House official Steve Bannon's radio show in January that Pence could pull it off if he had the courage and the spine to do so. According to no, he couldn't have though. According to comments unearthed by CNN's K-File, CNN reported last week that the January 6th committee would subpoena Eastman if he did not cooperate. The conservative lawyer's blueprint, which has been derided by many scholars, but it appears to have been taken seriously by Trump, has prompted some members of the January 6th committee to draft new legislation to head off such schemes in the future. The proposal could offer more specific instructions for when Congress can overturn a state's slate of electors, um, and more clearly define the role of the vice squatter or president plays in counting the votes. CNN's Jeremy Herb and Pamela Brown reported, drafting a new law would also provide the committee with the legislative purpose, but that could also potentially strengthen its case, both against Trump's sweeping executive privilege assertions and against Bannon, who has already been cited for criminal contempt of Congress for ignoring a subpoena, and he could be prosecuted by the Justice Department for ignoring that. It's now the concept of executive privilege is meant to provide presidents or squatter a guarantee that they can receive confidential advice on matters of state from senior officials. Now, however, Trump appears to be using the doctrine to cover up details of his own role and trying to stage a coup, so that the claim that he's seeking to protect the office of the squadrency itself rings rather hollow. But even if the House Select Committee does draft legislation, its prospects are uncertain. It could potentially pass a Democratic-led House, but its chances of surviving a likely GOP filibuster in the Senate, where only 7 Republican senators voted to convict Trump in his second impeachment trial over January 6, appears fucking slim. Now, such GOP appeasement of Trump's autocratic instincts was cited on Sunday by the Illinois Representative Adam Kinzinger, a rare Republican critic of Trump and one of just 2 Republicans on the January 6 committee, as one of the reasons why he decided not to run for re-election. You ultimately come to the realization that basically it's me, Liz Cheney, and a few others that are telling the truth, and there are about 190 people in the Republican Party that are not going to say a word. And this is what Kinzinger said on ABC's this week. And there's a leader of the Republican caucus that is embracing Donald Trump with all he can, Kinzinger said, and he's referring to the White House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who has anchored his party's hopes of winning back the House next year and becoming basically Trump's ball washer. And Trump's influence is everywhere, which is kind of pathetic and sad, but that's just the truth there. The latest developments in the January 6 investigation run out the weekend's only indicators of Trump's hold over his party and the influence that his tumultuous time in the Oval Office still holds over the country. He is apparently planning to bolt himself on Monday into the Virginia governor's race with the Tele-Klan rally on behalf of the Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin, who has run a well-pitched campaign that all but ignores the ex-squatter, while sending the coded cultural and racial messages to his sycophants. Youngkin hopes to make gains in his critical suburban areas that are around Washington, D.C., where Trump is held in disdain, but Trump's maneuver appears to be a naked attempt to claim credit if Youngkin wins a neck-and-neck race in a state where Biden trouts the ex-squatter. But it might just give the Democratic candidate Terry McAuliffe, who has limited success with painting his rival as a Trump clone, an election eve boost. But Trump wants to basically win here so he can announce for squatter for 2024. But that's the stakes of this election, McAuliffe told supporters on Sunday. If McAuliffe, who served the previous term as a governor, squeezes out a victory Tuesday, it might suggest that Trump remains a drag on the swing state GOP candidates even out of office. But Trump is likely to use a victory for Youngkin to bolster his false claims that vote counts in last year's elections were tampered with and that he really won in states he easily lost. In a new sign that his return to frontline politics is accelerating, Trump showed up at Atlanta on Saturday, basically for Game 4 of the World Series, and with the former first hoe by his side, and relished taking part in the controversial tomahawk chop, a chant and gesture that is a long-term tradition at Braves games, but also has been criticized as racist and offensive to Native Americans. Trump's visit, alongside his personally recruited Georgia Senate candidate Herschel Walker, underscored his willingness to embrace politically the incorrect causes to send cultural signs to his base, a technique that is at the center of his political appeal. But his visit to the state also brought a reminder of some of his most notorious efforts to steal the 2020 election, including his January 2nd call to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, a Republican who disclosed on Sunday that he felt threatened by Trump's pressure to find votes that would overturn his narrow loss in the state to Biden. And so you run down every single rabbit trail. None of it ever was supported by facts. And so I was never concerned from the standpoint of that, but I heard the threat that he was making, Raffensperger said on NBC's Meet the Press Sunday. The ex-squatter's influence also hung over the G20 summit in Europe as foreign nations in Europe as foreign nations wonder how long Biden's America is back mantra will last if Trump wins for squatter in 2024. The current President Biden on Sunday warned the world is continuing to suffer from the very bad decisions that President Trump made to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal. But Biden has struggled to get the Islamic Republic back to the negotiating table, and the U.S. now appears on the edge of another serious escalation with Tehran. But if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King, and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out, and thanks for listening.